I do have a question if we have a moment.
Sure.
Uh, I had made quite a few notes. I got a lot of takeaways out of where to go with, what images and, um, how our thinking is making the story. So I'm using a lot of the work in my coaching practice. And a lot of times I do meet resistance from the clients. Like I had one that said, "Oh, I just wanted to throw the phone," when we were talking about we were working on a belief system. And a belief system is belief because people are certain about it. So people can become quite attached to it. So we try and gently work through the process of inquiry. So my question to you, I had a client the other day that we were working on something that he was still quite angry about. And he was able to see without that thought, I would feel free and light and whatnot. But he was having a really hard time grasping the concept of bigger things happening. Because I mentioned, in Byron Katie's book, Loving What Is, she's talking about examples of war and sexual assault, big themes
Mm.
that people, how they're working through thoughts that are at that level of impact, right? Which they all have the same level of impact, but those kind of bigger situations. And he actually became angry with me. It seemed he may have been just angry with the fact that I was challenging those thoughts or suggesting that there was another way to look at it. But he basically was angry and was saying that's BS type thing, right?
Mm.
And I said, the idea that if we think something shouldn't happen, we suffer, does not mean that we're saying things should happen. And he said, "So you think everything that happens, it should happen?" And I said, "When I believe it shouldn't, I suffer." So what are your thoughts on that?
Hmm. I think you said it really well. It's when I believe my thoughts about it, I suffer. When I believe that it shouldn't happen, I suffer. It's not that I'm thinking things should happen in the conventional sense of the word. Bad things should happen. It's not like I'm wishing bad on people or the world, or I'm saying it's all right, or I'm just going to stand by and let bad things happen. No, that's not what we're saying at all. We're just talking about the work. Always, I have to remember the work is about my internal experience. So,
Mhm.
how I experience a situation, that's what we're working on here. It's not about what I do, my action, public policy. It's nothing like that. It's about how do I experience a particular situation. And what I notice again and again is that when I believe something shouldn't be happening, that is happening, then I suffer. Or just the opposite. If I think something should be happening and it's not happening, I suffer. So that's what Byron Katie calls arguing with reality. And when I
Mhm.
argue with reality, I always lose because reality is reality. I can't, you know, I may be able to change it sometimes. Great. When I can, let me change it by all means. But if I can't, then I can always work with my thinking and find a way of looking at it that is less stressful, less painful. So it's I think the key for me is keeping in mind this it's my internal experience that we're talking about here. That's it. Because people get confused. They're thinking, "Oh, you mean everything's okay now?" Like I just become a doormat or I just allow, crime or whatever. Like that is not what we're doing here. We're doing a personal internal meditation. And this is for me personally to free myself and find a more peaceful way of being with it with any situation. So yeah, and the beauty of it is that the work depending on how I sit with it, it can it's possible to find peace in any situation, any. So it could be huge, big things that are terrible, but when I go inside and I do this work myself internally with an open mind, I may find ways that I come to accept it and appreciate it, and even just basically stop resisting it, stop arguing with it. That's all it is. So anyway, for that's my 2 cents. It's
Beautiful.
the other thing is it's one has to do it oneself, right? It's self-inquiry. So I can come to to a client and say, here's a great example of why that turnaround is true, and I can have all my own experience ready to give them, but if they're not finding it, they may be resisting because they think I'm telling them to change their mind or something. So in the end, I end up being very accepting even of anyone doing the work, because they may just start to dip into it, and that may be huge for them. So I just let them get as much as they can, hold that space, and love them as they are as well. So
Absolutely. And I did say that this is just to introduce the possibility of other thoughts. Not that these need to become your belief systems, but the possibility that there's another way that, as you mentioned, feels less stressful.
yeah.
You know. So, in one last piece on that, and I know we're at our time here. So his question was, so in the moment of sexual assault or war, people are just supposed to be okay? And I said, they may not. This is oftentimes done in reflection, but if you were consistently practicing the work and finding peace in most situations, many things we find stressful probably wouldn't trigger us as much as they would previously.
Yeah.
Do you agree? Like, is that fair to say?
Well, I can only speak from my own experience, but and from what I've heard from others as well. But my experience is that less and less things bother me, and bigger things don't bother me as much. And like my mom died in a plane crash in 2010, and it was a shock for our family. But I was doing the work regularly, and I wasn't over it in a day. I wasn't just instantly over it. But in about 2 months, that my grief was gone and had never come back, and it's now just filled with love and appreciation, and a sense of ease. Like that was the way it was meant to be for her. So yeah,
Incredible.
bad things can happen, like things I don't want. And if my mind is open enough, and this gets cultured through this practice of doing the work, if my mind's open enough, I may be able to shift gears when reality shifts gears, and I can keep shifting and keep shifting. And that's a very dynamic, flexible, and strong way of living. That's what I'm doing. Instead of being like, things have to be this way and only this way, and if anything breaks that, I'm broken. There's more room. That's why I call it wiggle room, right? There's more room for me to maneuver and to find my peace no matter what does happen. That's the
Yes.
beauty of this practice.
And for everyone struggling with the pandemic, if they are in whatever capacity they are, I can speak to the fact that I found the work at lockdown 2.0, I believe, and we're in lockdown 4.0. 1.0 was horrific. 4.0 is a total celebration, and I'm enjoying it.
Isn't that
So
interesting?
that is due to the work. Same situation,
Same
different.
situation. Yeah, that's it. So that's the beauty of the work. You don't have to change the situation to come to an experience that it can be totally different, totally peaceful, enjoyable. If I can change here's the point though. If I can change a situation, then by all means, let me change the situation, right? So now I have two levers of control. One is action, the way I've always done action in the world. Something needs to be changed. Okay, what can I do to change it? Problem solving, projects, whatever it is. But in case there's some things I can't control, I have the work, which can allow me to work with my thinking and come to a place of non-argument with the reality that way. So either way, there's a possibility of more peace.
Amazing.
Yeah.